Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic rolls on this Overreaction Monday. Our guy Jeff Kolpak will join us about a half hour. We'll do our high school football recap in about an hour as well. That's coming up later on in the show. We do it each and every Monday to start to unpack what we saw over the weekend throughout FCS football. Our guy Sam Herder joins us from Hero Sports, BetMGM, to unpack the latest weekend as we get set for the FCS Playoff Top 10 rankings to be unveiled on Wednesday. We'll get to that in just a moment. The question going into this past weekend, I guess, I don't know if it was a statement Saturday, but we're halfway home now, Sam, after what happened on Saturday with most teams playing 6 games. I guess really to figure out who's legit for a chance to make some hay when we get to November. Did anybody else join the conversation after what the results on Saturday, in your opinion?
I think we're still with 5 teams right now. I think NDSU continues to separate itself a little bit from the pack. Just to me, NDSU looks like the most complete team. There's other teams where there's different parts of different games where you go, I don't know, but then they come back and play well, like Montana and South Dakota State. I do feel like the last few games, Montana State is really starting to click and looking like another really complete team. But it just feels like you have less question marks about NDSU compared to everyone else. Obviously, the Bison still have to go to Brookings and Grand Forks to really difficult tests, but I imagine the Bison will still be favored going into those games, but still will be difficult road challenges. So I think you kind of have the usual suspects, and then Tarleton State I think is still hanging out there as well. I think they're built to give some teams some scares in the playoffs. I know the injury bug is kind of hitting them right now. They're down there starting quarterback, top 2 running backs, top 3 running backs, actually, if you want to go back to their week 0 injury.
Yeah.
So their depth and talent has really showed because, they're still winning games despite having a lot of injuries right now.
How about on the flip side, I guess pretenders, teams we thought that might have been in the conversation that have played themselves out of it right now?
Yeah, I think, well, we've known this for a few weeks now, but like coming into the year, we thought South Dakota and UIW could potentially be in that mix. They've been falling off, but we've known that for a little bit. I still think Southern Illinois is a good team, and like it was a blowout win for NDSU and a pretty decisive win. But you felt like a couple of different sequences go a different way, and Southern Illinois doesn't win that game, but they at least make it look a little more respectable. So I still think maybe they fall off a little bit as far as, okay, they're not quite there yet as far as being contenders, but could they make a trip to the quarterfinals based off of what we've seen so far? I think that's possible, depending on matchups. But there's like Southern Illinois is really good, but NDSU is really, really, really good. There's levels to it, and if you're a team like the Salukis, you have to play a dang near perfect game to win in the Fargo Dome, and you can't. If it's a tie ball game and you have momentum on your side, you cough up a fumble, then you allow a deep pass to Bryce Lance. Like right when that happened, I'm like, it's not gonna be the Salukis day today. Like that sequence can't happen if you want to win on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in just a little bit. I don't know what we thought of Idaho either, but them losing at home to Northern Colorado, I mean, now they've got 4 losses, and I know 2 are to FBS teams, but I don't know if they can afford maybe 1 more, and that's it if they want a shot at the playoffs now.
Yeah, I think I dropped them out of my top 25. I don't know. I mean, they could always rebound. They were without their starting quarterback this last weekend, Joshua Wood. He suffered a knee injury against Montana a couple of weeks ago. He's expected to return at some point, but right now, I mean, they probably would have to run the table to for sure get in, and they have some tough contests still to come. And I thought Idaho would take a step back this year, but maybe not as drastic as some people thought, just because, they returned a decent amount on the offensive line, really good running back room. Joshua Wood was highly hyped coming into this year after transferring in. And, defensively, I thought they'd be pretty good at linebacker. But, I mean, they played a couple of FBS opponents really tough.
Yes.
And the Montana game got away from them, although they somewhat made it interesting in the second half. But yeah, this game, it was at home too. I want to say it was homecoming.
It was. Yeah.
In Northern Colorado. Even if your starting quarterback is out, like you can't allow 49 points or whatever it was to Northern Colorado defensively. So that's a tough look for Idaho.
So I saw your poll, and I was looking like, I probably got to give Lamar some love because Lamar got the big win over USD, and I don't know if they dropped off our map, but here Lamar's hanging around. Are we starting to? Are they a contender to win that league in the Southland?
I still like Stephen F. Austin, overall, just with, SFA, I think is good defensively and, offensively, has, an opportunity to be really explosive once they can get it kind of clicking better for SFA. Southeastern Louisiana is hanging around there, as well. I mean, Lamar came into my top 25 rankings after they beat South Dakota,
Yes.
but then they fell off because they barely beat Central Arkansas, who's really down, and they barely beat Nichols, who's also not not very good. And so they kind of fell off for me a little bit. But then this last week, and they beat East Texas A&M 33-23. That came down to the end, despite the 10 score or the 10-point win there. And so they keep on winning, so I eventually move them in, but none of their wins besides the South Dakota one really moves the needle a whole lot because they're barely beating some of these teams that
Right.
aren't very good. But I mean, they keep on winning. And South Dakota is potentially turning its season around a little bit. So that's kind of why they moved back into my top 25 for Lamar.
All right, let's before we get to the Bison here, let's unpack Tarleton for a bit. We talked about them a lot off the top of the year. They had the week 0 win, then they beat Army. They're still unbeaten. We're going to get to the conversation later, Oswell, about the top 10 rankings of how do we evaluate Tarleton when they're unbeaten, they have the FBS win, but they have no ranked wins currently. Well, now they're going to get one now finally.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see where they're at right in this week's rankings because their resume right now is solid, but they don't have any ranked wins,
Right.
and their strength of schedule isn't super strong. But you look at the rest of their schedule. West Georgia is probably going to be ranked this weekend, I would imagine. Abilene Christian, and then Austin P as well. Those are three upcoming ranked
Yep.
opponents, and then they go to Eastern Kentucky, who just got a ranked win as well. So I don't necessarily know if EKU will be ranked in a couple of weeks, but they by the year's end, I think off the top of my head, I think Tarleton's strength of schedule is going to be like 27th, and Montana's is going to be 26th, and NDSU's is going to be 21st. Like there really isn't much of a difference between the 21st strength of schedule and the 28th. It's pretty much on par when you're kind of looking at it from a macro view. And
Right.
so right now their strength of schedule ranked wins, you kind of go, yeah, they don't really have anything right now. But if they go undefeated with the rest of this schedule, then all of a sudden you go, okay, that's three ranked wins, that's an FBS win, that's a respectable strength of schedule. It's one more D win than Montana
Right.
potentially. And so all of a sudden we start having the conversation of like Tarleton State is like this year's, Sac State team from a few years ago, where you go, okay, like their resume is actually really good if they keep on winning.
Yeah, the D2 wins for like SIU and Montana. I know we were talking about this a little last week. Depending on how this all plays out, if we're looking at criteria, that's got to be number one to me. You have to play all Division One teams if you're going to be ranked highly or even get a top 8 seed. If you don't, that's a huge black mark again. I don't care if you go unbeaten. If you haven't played all Division One opponents, that should hurt you.
Yeah, there's potential for it for sure because non D1 wins. We used to call them non-counters.
Yes.
That's technically not true. Like no one ever corrected us until like 2 years ago. But they do count on your resume. They just don't count as much as Division One wins. So if you're 12 and 0, if you're a 12 and 0 Montana team, for example, just to make it easy, you're 12 and 0 in the eyes of the playoff committee. But they might compare your 11 D1 wins to Tarleton's 12 D1 wins, and that could be when we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 playoff seeds. Those small details, all come into play, whether it's margin of victory, number of D1 opponents you play, number of D1 wins, ranked opponents, like all of those small details can really, separate yourself. And so, yeah, I do think that is a factor, and you want to play as many D1 wins or D1 games as possible to strengthen your overall resume.
Your team of the week is NDSU. I think it goes without saying what the Bison did. They're now 6-0. They outscored those three ranked opponents, Sam, 129-46. USD, Illinois State, SIU. They're clearly right now the number one team, I think by a wide margin in my mind.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm sure South Dakota State will get a few first place votes.
Yep.
I don't know if it'll be totally unanimous, but to me, I think NDSU is the clear number one right now. And we no longer have to do yeah, they're looking good, yeah, but because of their strength of opponents, they three straight ranked opponents now, all winning, mostly decisively. Illinois State was a pretty close game, but overall the Bison have handled business. Looking really good defensively. Cole Payton, I think, is I don't want to say running away with the Walter Payton Award because there's 50 other voters. I don't know what they're thinking, but I certainly think he's among the favorites.
Yep.
I think Derek Robertson, is there as well. I think Western Carolina's quarterback Teron Dickens is there as well. And like honestly, right now, like he might not have the stats, but like usually voters won't put two players from the same team in their top five ballot, but Bryce Lance to me could be a
yes, I agree.
top five type of guy as
Yep.
well. So NDSU could have, I don't know if they'll have two guys in Nashville for the awards because that's top three, but I could see Bryce Lance finishing in the top five just because he might not have the gaudy statistics compared to other guys. But if you have 5 targets and 4 catches for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, like that's pretty dang good. I would take that over, 120 yards off of, 12 targets or whatever.
How impressed have you been offensively? I think we talked for the season. I even said it during our broadcast Saturday. The offense wants to be mad at me when I said I thought the defense was going to be the strength of the team. Defensively, the Bison have been pretty darn good. Offense has just been humming since the start of the year.
Yeah, they've really been clicking right away. And you thought maybe like, and I've said this before, like I think the assumption coming into this year was Cole Payton was going to be good, just because you kind of trust the NDSU's process of developing quarterbacks. The question was how good was he going to be? Was he going to be pretty good, or was he going to be elite? And well, he's been elite so far. But you also kind of felt like, okay, maybe the Bison would lean on the defense early on in the season just to see what they have, offensively. Are they going to play it safe? Are they going to ease Cole Payton into it? If it's a 2-minute situation, or are they going to be like not as aggressive, just to kind of test what Peyton can do? But the first quarter against the Citadel, but after that, it's just been pretty much smooth sailing, a lot of the way. And so yeah, the Bison offense is absolutely humming right now.
Which, by the way, was a pouring rain in the first quarter of the game of the Citadel in Charleston to start the year. Let's look at your spotlight games. I'm going to go. That game in Carbondale's got my attention on Saturday with UND and SIU. This is a statement game for whoever wins it. If SIU does, all right, they're back after a difficult week in Fargo. If UND wins it, that changes, I think, the whole temperament around them. It's one thing to win at Northern Iowa, but to win in Carbondale, that's a whole other conversation we can have about their football team.
Yeah, I think a statement performance or a statement game is the right word for these two programs, because if you're SIU and you lose this game, you don't really have a win on your resume that is really
Correct.
screaming we're a top 10 team, and so I think this is a really a huge opportunity for Southern Illinois. And then for UND, keeps on rising up in the rankings, and they're in a lot of top 10 ballots, for myself included. But this would be like a signature win for them right now. And like comparing scores, UND looks really good because they beat Northern Iowa just easier than South Dakota State did, and they beat Youngstown State, who was ranked in the coaches poll this last weekend, easier than South Dakota State did. And so you can compare those scores and all that. But if you can go on the road and beat what I assume is still going to be a top 10 team, that's going to be really impressive for UND to kind of hammer home the fact that, they've arrived and they deserve to be in the top 10.
The other matchup in the Valley you've got is Youngstown and Illinois State, which the winner of that is got some driver's seat material to potentially make a playoff run.
Yeah, and Youngstown State needs this. Back-to-back losses now, 2 ranked opponents. And, Illinois State, I was kind of curious about their Murray State performance this last weekend.
Yeah.
Were they going to come in a little sleepy after an emotional loss to NDSU? And Illinois State didn't really pull away from Murray State. They still won by a couple of scores, but
they gave up a lot of points, though.
Massive. Yeah, they did. So this one is massively important for both of those squads and their playoff hopes.
What else you got for us around the country?
Yeah, one more ranked matchup. West Georgia goes to Tarleton State. West Georgia started 5-0. They're now 5-2, 2 straight losses. I think the FCS needs injury reports. I know they're not going to do it because their head coach, West Georgia's head coach, at the start of last week said, "Yep, our starting quarterback, he's going to be good to go. He's going to be fine." And then he doesn't play at all. So it's like, well, I picked you guys to win because I thought your starting quarterback was going to be in the game, but he wasn't. But he might be back. We'll see. Tarleton State, they're also down to their backup quarterback. I think Victor Gabalis is close to returning. So we'll see if they can get, the health bug kind of back on their side for Tarleton State. And then one more, UTRGV goes to Lamar. UTRGV is pretty decent, in their first year as an FCS member, winning record. We'll see if Lamar can keep on winning. We talked about them, how they're undefeated versus the FCS. A lot of close wins against not very good opponents. That USD win is still looking really good, but I think it'll be a challenge for them to in this game.
All right, before we go, you did a whole feature on Rio Grande Valley. Give us the lowdown on them. They're brand new FCS team of And granted, they're in Texas, so you have to imagine that much like Abilene, much like Tarleton, that success may be there in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah, so they are the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, UTRGV. So they're in the University of Texas system. So they got money. They have really, really nice brand new facilities.
Yeah.
They have a stadium that used to be a soccer stadium, but they bought it. So it's theirs now. They've sold out their season tickets. They've sold out all of their suites. And they're in a area of the country where, and this is weird to think about because it's Texas, but they don't have another Division I school or a Division I football program within a 3-hour radius of them.
That's
I think
wild.
UIW is the closest team, and that's San Antonio, which is 3.5 hours away. So I mean, they got the fan support. They'll be able to recruit there. They could get some FBS drop down guys that want to return, back home to that area. So I think they have the potential there, the resources, the talent, the location, fan support, all of that to be, a really, really good team. And they are playoff eligible this year, I believe, because they're not technically transitioning. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but I do think they've had a promising start to this year.
Yeah, they have 3 non-D1 wins, so they're going to have to do something crazy here the rest of the way if they're going to even get on our radar, which is a perfect segue. Wednesday, we're going to get our first look at the top 10 playoff rankings. I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, there are 7 new members on the FCS Playoff Committee. So this is our first of 2 to get a window what the committee looks like, how the team is looked for the top 10 at least halfway through the year.
Yeah, I believe it's like 6, 7, 8, something around there. So there's more new members than returning members, and it's an 11-person committee now with the Ivy League having a representative. I believe it's the Princeton's AD who's the representative for the Ivy League. So yeah, this is going to be a good glimpse of how they're viewing teams right now. This is a snapshot of the season, so it's not projecting ahead. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, do they put Tarleton State ahead of Montana? Both teams are undefeated, but Montana has a couple of ranked wins. Montana also has one less D1 win. Tarleton State has an FBS win. In Army, I think it's 3-3 right now, so like they're actually pretty decent. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there with their top 5, and what they do with like a Southern Illinois team who has 2 losses compared to a Monmouth team who has no losses versus the FCS. So I mean, I'm glad they're doing 2 reveals, because I think last year they only did 1, and that was before the Dakota Marker game. So it was almost useless, because it's like, well, some of the biggest games still have to happen. So I'm glad they're doing a second one, which will be in like early November, I want to say.
Because I would say do it after the Marker game. Wherever it is, do it after then, because then we have a clearer understanding. You want to know where you sit, to me, going into the final week of the season. I think it's unfair if we don't do one then, so teams can actually gauge, like, all right, if we win, we're in the postseason, or if we win, we know we're going to be a top 8 seed. That, to me, is a better gauge than now in the middle of October. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. And resumes will still be very fluid. And there's a lot of examples of this in the past where, like, if Tarleton is ranked ahead of Montana in this top 10 and they both win out, that doesn't mean Tarleton has to stay ahead of Montana, in this scenario, or vice versa. And so resumes are always still fluid, but you still like to see kind of just how the playoff committee views teams, because if they put Tarleton State 2, which I mean, I don't think they would ahead of South Dakota State, but if they do, then you go, okay, these committee members individually are really, really valuing that FBS win. And so us bracketologists, once we start doing that, probably will wait until after the Dakota Marker game for my first bracketology. We have to keep that in mind, because we do what we think the playoff committee is going to do. If they really value that FBS win, then we kind of have to reflect that in our bracketology.
It's going to be really interesting. That comes out Wednesday at 1 o'clock. College Football Live on ESPN2 will have that. Great to see you, bud. We'll talk all about it next week. Thanks for the time. We'll see you next Monday, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
There you go. Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:30 to unpack the weekend that was in FCS football and look ahead to what we got. Again, the playoff top 10 rankings Wednesday afternoon at 1 to see who's in that top 10. And got a couple of their text messages in before we go. Tarleton has no wins against a winning team. We were talking about that. Tennessee Tech is also unbeaten. Combined wins of opponents is 3. I think the Golden Eagles are in the Ohio Valley. That's the same league that produced SEMO and Tennessee State, who the Bison dismissed with prejudice. They're 6-0. Again, great. You've won 6 games. You beat nobody. That's something for the committee, and I know there are new members in there. You got to look at that. You can't just, they're unbeaten. They got to be good. Because we got a ton of people that vote in the poll like that. It's not how it works. At least it shouldn't. We're overdue for a break. We'll come back. We'll get caught up, wrap up our first hour. Jeff Kolpak coming up to start hour number 2. We'll chat about the Bison big win. Look ahead to the trip to the Hoosier State. The Bison are taking on Indiana State this week. That's coming up when we come back.